Hello, I'm Dave Lieberth, and this is the beginning of a video journey into the history of Buchtel College and the University of Akron. In 2020, we commemorate the sesquicentennial of the University of Akron. Now, this building is special to me, Colby Hall. It was here in 1965 that my first experience was playing in the summer band under the arch that used to be here. It was here, though, that I gained a professional career in broadcasting because of the campus radio station, and I gained a performing experience on the stage at the theater here. Most importantly, it was right here between the old Memorial Hall and Colby Hall that I waited, that I wooed, and eventually wed a young woman with whom I will commemorate a golden wedding anniversary this year. What's special about my story is that there's nothing special about it at all. There are hundreds, maybe even thousands of such personal stories of people who began their life's journey here, who met a mate here, who started a life here. John R. Buchtel was born in Greene 5 years before Akron itself was founded. Greene was settled by Germans, most of whom were farmers. John's father gave him 100 acres of land and all the debt that went with it. With hard work, he prospered and eventually farmed 200 acres in what today would be South Akron. Buchtel was short, stocky, and a physically powerful man. He lifted timbers into place for his new factory in Akron, the Buckeye Mower and Reaper Company, and he became its president. Townsfolk described him as smart, but stubborn. He could outwork almost anyone. He was playful and humorous, with a penchant toward practical jokes. He was a prohibitionist, but was known to have wine on his table for his guests, and he was reputed to let slip an oath or cuss word on occasion. He and his wife Elizabeth had no children. Buchtel was unfailingly generous to those who worked for him and his fellow citizens. In 1870, a college was to be the centennial gift from the Universalist Church to their Ohio members. Leaders scouted Ohio towns and villages for the community that could provide land and $60,000 cash for Murray College. The man who stepped forward in 1870, and year after year for the rest of his life, was John R. Buchtel. The Universalists agreed Akron would be a fine location for their college. At an early meeting of the new trustees, Mr. Buchtel was asked what name for the college he would prefer. "This is to be your college," he said, "not mine. But I intend to give it $100,000. You may call the college what you please." And it pleased them to name it Buchtel College. This is the desk that belonged to John R. Buchtel. And appropriately enough, it's located here in the University of Akron archives, located in the lower level of the Polsky Building. We are here celebrating the 150th anniversary of the school. That it survived a decade is nothing short of a miracle. Shortly after statehood, Ohio University in Athens was founded in 1804. But many of the early schools never made it past a few years. Buchtel College almost did not make it, except for the man who sat at this desk, the president of the Buckeye Mower and Reaper Company, who transformed the city he loved for a century and a half. This land was the farm of one of Akron's earliest residents, Major Minor Spicer of Connecticut. In the 1860s, there were cornfields all around. Avery Spicer offered to donate the land for a college. This rise in topography gave a commanding view of the canal town of Akron in 1870. But this property contained the family cemetery. Eventually, Major Spicer and others buried there would be removed to the new rural cemetery on the other side of town. The cornerstone for the college was laid on the 4th of July of 1871. 5,000 people jammed the town's hotels, restaurants, following a grand parade. Future presidential candidate and the editor of the New York Tribune, Horace Greeley, was the day's celebrity speaker. The school's first building was 5 stories tall, 240 feet long and 54 feet deep. It had 140 sleeping rooms, divided equally between the sexes, men on the east side, women on the west. There was a gymnasium, a well for water, a steam boiler for heating, and gas lighting. The Universalists were strong proponents of education for all, regardless of race or gender. Of the 217 students in Buchtel College's first year of study, almost half were women, a ratio that would continue into the early years of the 20th century. The first day of classes was September 11th, 1872. The college's first president was a Universalist minister, Reverend Sullivan McAllister. A graduate of Harvard Divinity School, he'd been Commissioner of Education for New Hampshire. He saw his duty to teach students to think, to discipline their conscience, and strengthen their will. In this way could the college strengthen democracy, its true mission. Young men and women received a classical education. Freshmen were required to study Greek, Latin, algebra, botany, and declamation. Students came from around Ohio, many from farming communities, and almost every one of them affiliated with the Universalist Church. Tuition, including books that first year, was $37.25. In 1875, the school nearly closed because of financial difficulties, but rescued through gifts from John R. Buchtel. When Reverend McAllister resigned as president after 6 years, another Universalist pastor replaced him, Everett L. Rexford, who'd been on the board of trustees from the beginning. Rexford was a free thinker and encouraged students to form their own opinions regarding religion and morality. Not only was he faced with paying off the large debt, but he needed to heal a breach between the college and the local Universalist congregation. He lasted just 2 years, and in 1880, Aurelio Cohn became the third president of Buchtel College. A scholar, a liberal, he would expand the small student body by recruiting non-Universalists as students. He built Buchtel College's first gymnasium in 1888. Named for George W. Krause, it was the finest gymnasium west of the Alleghenies. He built an observatory, the third building on campus. It had a 4.5-inch telescope. John R. Buchtel died in 1892. In the 22 years since founding the college, he had given almost $500,000 to the school. That's most of his wealth. Today, it would equate to about $15 million. In 1893, the nation experienced a financial panic, a depression that decimated Akron's industries in clay products, cereal, farm machinery, and rubber products. The situation was so severe that President Cohn had to quell rumors that Buchtel College would soon close, like a half-dozen other Ohio colleges that failed during that time. Cohn was too liberal for the Universalists and forced to resign in 1896. A teacher of natural sciences, Dr. Charles M. Knight, served as acting president for the coming year. The situation was so dire that Dr. Knight proposed shutting down the college for a year to catch up on payment of its debt. Dr. Ira Priest was named the school's 5th president, pastor of the Universalist Church in Akron, and chaplain of the college. His challenge was to resolve the perpetual financial crisis and declining enrollment. But a tragedy of major proportions would alter his life and the story of the institution forever. Just before Christmas, at the end of the old century, on the night of December 20th, 1899, Old Buchtel burned to the ground. The flames shot high into the air. Akron residents arrived on foot, on horseback, in carriages, to move what they could from the burning building. The flames were spectacular, and the next morning only the shell of Old Buchtel remained. In 1901, the pastor of the Universalist Church was named the new president of the college, Augustus B. Church. He would preside over the dedication of a new Buchtel Hall, designed by Akron architect Frank Weary. Today's Buchtel Hall sits on the southeast corner of Old Buchtel Hall. Stone was borrowed from the old Buchtel Hall to build the new Buchtel Hall. In fact, today, you can still see the scorch marks from that first fire. With waning support from the Ohio Universalists, Dr. Church cut ties to the church principally so that underpaid faculty could be eligible for pensions funded by the Carnegie Foundation. With no John R. Buchtel around and no magnanimous contributions to the college, he offered to merge with Kent Normal College, now Kent State University. Dr. Church led the construction of a new chemistry building and began the first evening classes in 1909. He would also leave his mark as the author of the Alma Mater, which remains unchanged today. In 1910, Akron, Ohio became the fastest growing city in the United States. And by 1912, the prosperity spread to Buchtel College, which was having its best year ever. But President Church caught pneumonia after watching a football game and became the only president to die in office. Trustees turned to a 32-year-old faculty member, Park R. Colby, the 7th president of the college. Park attended Akron Public Schools and graduated from Buchtel College in 1901. His father, Carl, was professor of modern languages for 33 years. Since Akron's economy was booming in 1913 and with no other support in sight, Dr. Colby saw a way for the college to share in the city's prosperity. He presented a comprehensive program to transfer to the city all of the university's property. City Council issued a tax levy to support the new municipal university, assuring its future. The state of Ohio permitted cities to operate colleges, but only if no tuition was charged to residents. So while the university now had a stable source of revenue, the doors of the college were also thrown open to students who needed only a high school diploma for admission. The university agreed to open an engineering school in 1914 and took on duties for the city of surveying and testing in its new Bureau of Industrial Research. Instead of educating the whole person in the classical tradition, Akron was now offering students an education for life and practical skills. Engineering Dean Fred Ayer developed one of the nation's first co-op programs, whereby engineering students would spend a significant amount of their time working in industry. A school of nursing opened in 1919, and in 1921, secretarial courses were offered. In 1913, Buchtel College had 198 students. By 1920, enrollment had grown fivefold, with half of the 1,000 students taking classes at night. The first summer sessions were offered in 1922. In 1917, as World War I engulfed Europe, Akron tire companies could not hire men fast enough. The University of Akron started to look like a military base, as more than 600 men marched to classes from their barracks on Forge Street. Krause Gym was turned into a center to train draftees. 500 soldiers, members of the Army Mechanics Training Corps, were assigned to the university to learn tire repair. But in 1918, an influenza epidemic swept the world, and the university was hit hard during Thanksgiving that year. President Colby quarantined the entire campus. Colby continued as president until 1925, when he resigned to become president of the Polytechnic Institute of Brooklyn. He was succeeded by Dr. George F. Zook, who had served as chief of the Division of Higher Education with the U.S. Bureau of Education. The University of Akron led Ohio colleges in growth over its first decade, doubling in size by 1923. Kids from poor families were getting an education for the first time, but it also meant that classes had swelled to 80 people. Every classroom was packed, with desks pushed into closets and hallways. Dr. Zook's presidency would be consumed by one overriding issue: how a university that was landlocked could ever grow into greatness and be competitive. Zook was faced with the challenge of a generous gift, a 180-acre farm in West Akron. J. Edward Good, president of a hardware company, believed the site was a perfect suburban setting for a great university. As early as 1914, Akron's match king O.C. Barber had proposed giving the school his farm in Barberton, where there was plenty of room to grow. Akron's industrial leaders jumped on board to move the campus from the gritty industrial downtown area of Akron to the west side, a sleek suburban setting with room for 3,000 students. Today, J. Edward Good Park is a golf course operated by the city of Akron. Buchtel College alumni, the Akron Beacon Journal, and John S. Knight all supported the move. In 1928, the university's Board of Trustees approved relocating the school and put it to a vote of the people of Akron in November 1929. The vote coincided with the stock market crash, and it was no time for new taxes. A $3 million bond issue was crushed at the polls, effectively killing the project, and Dr. Zook's four-year quest for a new college site was ended. The Great Depression hit Akron hard. The city had one of the highest rates of industrial unemployment in the nation. The university faculty took pay cuts, and in 1932, when the money ran out, they were paid salaries in scrip, a substitute for cash. Dr. Zook left Akron in 1933. He was named the U.S. Commissioner of Education. He was succeeded by Heselton E. Simmons, a vestige of old Buchtel, having graduated in 1908. He'd been teaching chemistry, and he succeeded Dr. Knight as the department chair. By 1935, the Municipal University of Akron was the fifth largest university in the state of Ohio. Simmons secured federal funds from the WPA to build a new student center in 1939. He founded a new College of Education and presided over the school's first football game at the new Rubber Bowl. When it became a national priority to find a substitute for natural rubber after Pearl Harbor, Dr. Simmons became the associate chief of the rubber branch of the War Production Board, which would occupy most of his time. The climate on campus changed drastically. Students and faculty left in droves, either to fight the war overseas or to work in local factories. Athletic teams were forced into hiatus, with barely enough men showing up to play the major sports. Commencement ceremonies were suspended and resumed only after the victory in Europe in 1945. At war's end, Simmons was back at his desk. Enrollment had skyrocketed to 5,600 students, buoyed by returning soldiers on the GI Bill. He undertook the first systematic development on the campus since 1900, and he garnered funding from local companies to build a new engineering building in 1949. GIs returning from service were anxious to complete an education, to get a degree, and to embark on new careers. University historian Dr. George Knepper called this period the golden era of student interest, motivation, and accomplishment. Hes Simmons had devoted 40 years to the University of Akron's causes. In 1950, trustees began a year-long search for a new president. It was a time when faculty salaries were still low and even demeaning to the talented professors who took such a strong personal interest in the success of their students and their programs. As historian George Knepper has said, for much of its history, the University of Akron was mired in perpetual financial crisis.
Heselton Simmons' final act as president was to try to ensure the financial stability of the school that he loved. Stability that would match the dedication of the faculty and the motivation of the students as the University of Akron entered the 1950s. In future episodes of this series, we will look at the innovation that marked the careers of so many members of the faculty and the students who participated in the sciences. We'll also look at the University of Akron as the center of the community's cultural base of arts and dance and music. And then we will also explore how the University of Akron brought town and gown together and engaged with the community at large. Please join us.